Hi everyone, welcome back to another video, and today we are doing part 2 of our Roblox beginner scripting tutorial. If you didn't watch part 1, I'll link it down in the description, but I would recommend going to watch that first if you're new to scripting and Roblox development. If you don't want to watch the other one, then all we did was learn about print statements and what do you call it? Oh, variables. So today we are going to dive a little deeper into properties and functions. So let's get started. And don't forget to subscribe, like the video, comment, and ring the bell. So what are properties? So if we go to home and enter a part, right? And we can hit select and we go to properties, we can see all of these things that we can change to change the way that the part works. For example, we can change the reflectance using this bar. And as you can see, it got like reflective. We can make it transparent. We can change the material. And if we scroll down, we can also change like the position. So we could set it to like 000. And as you can see, then it's at the very middle of the map, which is going to be right here. So there's a lot of things you can change with parts, and not just with parts, with any sort of object that's in the Explorer. So in today's video, I'm going to show you the basics of updating those properties through a script. Now I'm just going to change this part into something that's actually like more visible, just so that we can actually see it. Okay, that's good. So let's get scripting. So first, we're going to create a new script into our script service. And we are going to call this one property script. So first, we're going to reference the part. So if you don't remember what a variable is, what we can make a variable by typing in local and the name that we want to reference the variable. So you could put it as anything. You can make it like that, but you want to make it as short and easy as possible. So I'm just going to name it part. Then we say equals. Then we have to reference the location of the part. So the part is going to be inside of the workspace. So the part's in the game, of course. So first you type in game inside of the workspace, which is going to be right here. So game dot, remember dot is how we get something of something else. Game dot workspace. Then it's inside that workspace. So it's game dot workspace dot part is the root. So the root, by the root, it's like the source. It's sort of like in your files when you have file folders. It's with think of each thing as a folder and you're looking for the right file. So here part is our file. However, there is a bit of a problem because you see Roblox cannot load everything at the like very instantly. So there's a method within Workspace which allows us or there's a method in general which allows us to wait until Roblox has loaded the object before attempting to reference it. Because sometimes it won't load fast enough if you have too many objects and it'll just bug out and not do anything to that object. So the method that we're going to be using, we're going to get rid of this dot part and we can type in colon wait for child and put parentheses. So wait for child means that it waits until the child of a certain name is loaded in. So we're going to put quotation marks and type in part. So now this is still going to reference this part, but it's going to wait until the part is loaded in before trying to reference it. So now we have fetched the part object. Now let's try changing a property of a part. But before that, I'm going to show you how to make a pause or a wait. A wait is basically when you are waiting for a specific amount of time before proceeding with the script. So there's two main ways of waiting. One is simply by typing in wait, parentheses, and then however many seconds you want it to be. But that's very inaccurate and most people don't use it. So I would completely ignore this and instead type in task dot wait, parentheses, and the amount of seconds, or the duration. So we're going to say 5 seconds, so we actually get a chance to see the property of the part change. And by the way, that the stuff loads in before the player loads in. So right now is when the timer would start of 5 seconds. So after 5 seconds, what we're going to want to do is change a property of the part. So the property we're going to change is, for now, well, let's see. Let's change the transparency. The transparency is how visible it is, and it goes from a scale of 0 to 1. A transparency of 0 means that a part is completely visible, whereas a transparency of 1 means that it's completely invisible. The higher the transparency, the less visible the object becomes. So let's change the transparency. So how about after 5 seconds, we make the part invisible? To do that, all we have to type in is part dot and the property. So dot can be referenced as many things, but it usually means something related to the part. So in this situation, it's going to be part dot transparency equals and what we want it to be set to. So we're going to set it to 1 because that's going to make the part invisible. So if we hit play now and we watch the part, as you can see, it's normal, but then after 5 seconds, it becomes invisible. Now we can still actually walk on it. If we look at our feet, we can see ourselves just floating on the part. So if we want us to not be able to walk on the part, then we can use another feature called can collide here, which I mentioned in the first episode. So we're going to disable can collide by doing a similar thing by saying part dot can collide equals false. So if we turn when it's set to false, then we can no longer collide with the object. So to show you, I'm currently colliding with the object because I'm stepping on top of it. But as you can see, it's gone and there's like no trace of it actually being there. But in game, you can actually look at the Explorer. So if we go to the Explorer, open up Workspace, we can see that the part would still be there, but we don't actually see it. So we can hit stop. So this completely hides the part. So that's how we can use basic property manipulation. But dot is not the only way to manipulate a property. As you saw, we used a colon here, and there are also methods you can use with colons. So for example, if you type in part colon, you'll see all of these different things that we can use. For example, we can use part colon clone if we want to make a copy of that part, or we can use part colon is a. If we have a variable and we're not sure what type of object it is, we can use is a as well as an if statement to figure it out. We will talk about if statements actually right now. So an if statement is checking if a certain condition is true, then we'll perform a task. So we're going to do first before the wait, we're going to do if part, so if and then the condition, we're going to say part dot transparency equals 0, then we're going to print out the part is not transparent. So this is going to check if the part is transparent before we do make it transparent, and if it's not transparent, then it'll say that it's not transparent. So if we play, then if we go to the output by clicking view output, you'll notice we have a bug. It says expected then when parsing if statement got equals, but it looks like we did everything right? Well, if you've done coding before, in any other language, you'll know about the double equals rule. If you're using an if statement or something where you're not setting the value of a property, then you're always going to use two equal signs. So when we're setting the value of a property to false, then we're going to use one equal sign. But in this scenario, it's by saying this, all we're doing is setting the transparency to 0. We need to use two equal signs to actually check if the part transparency is equal to 0. So now, when we hit play, as you can see, it printed out the part is not transparent because its transparency is 0. Then, if we put another if statement after we set the transparency, after we make it invisible, we can say if part dot transparency equals 0, then print part is not transparent. So if we hit play, we'll see our original part is not transparent. After 5 seconds, when the part goes invisible, you'll see that nothing was printed. That's because this condition is false. Part.transparency has become 1, so it's just going to skip past whatever code is in here. So if we were to say if part.transparency equals 1, then the part would be transparent. Then when we hit play, If we wait for the part to be transparent in 5 seconds, as you can see, part is transparent. So I know it might have seemed a little confusing, but I hoped I got through to you. Now, another part of if statements is called else statements. And an else statement is an add-on to an if statement that checks if this condition is false, then do this code instead of this code. So let's do this. If the part is not transparent, then it'll print out this. But what if it is transparent? To make an else, we're going to hit enter and then type in else and then hit enter again, and it'll automatically reformat itself. Then we can print out, now we know that the part is transparent, so then we can print out part is transparent. So then for now, we can go to part, hit properties, and right here we can set the starting property to 1 so that the part is transparent. Then, as you can see, the part is already transparent, so it prints that out because of the else statement. Again, I hope that was good enough for you to understand. Okay, so that's if statements, basically, the basics of if statements. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to talk about functions. So a function can be either used for organization or just for optimization. So if you either have code that you want to look better or code that you're reusing multiple times, then you can wrap it in a function. So let's say that we're constantly making our part invisible and visible again using this sort of code. We can use, instead of having to copy and paste this over and over again every time we need to use it, we can instead put it inside of a function and just have to write one short line of code whenever we want to reference this code. So that might seem a little confusing. Let me show you how to write a function. So we're going to write a local function. So there's global and local functions. For local functions, all you have to know is that you can only reference it after it has been made. So if we type in here, to make one, we can say local function and then the name of the function. So we're going to call it make invisible. Then we can put parentheses, and here we can put parameters. So a parameter is something that we can pass in to when we're calling the function that we can use to change the data or change the task that we perform in the function. So for now, we're just going to take in a parameter of what part of the name of the part that we're going to make invisible. So we're just going to say part. And remember, this part doesn't have anything to do with this part. We are going to pass in this part for that parameter, but these two are not directly interrelated. So actually, I'm just going to call it just part with a capital P, just so I don't confuse you guys. Then we can get to the end of the parenthesis, hit enter, and you'll see that end is automatically created. We can get rid of that slash up. So now we have our make invisible. Now we can actually copy this code and get rid of it and then paste it in here. So now we're just going to change these to a capital P part, and there we go. So that just makes it invisible. Now, whenever we want to make it invisible, all we have to do is type in make invisible, parentheses, and then pass in a part object. Well, we can pass in anything, but it'll break if we don't pass in a part object. So the part object we're going to pass in is this lowercase p part, because that is a part object. So we're going to put in lowercase p part. And there we go. Now, that should have the exact same effect. So in 5 seconds, then this part should become invisible. And as you can see, it was made invisible. And just so I can show you how it works, I'm just going to print out function called. So now, after 5 seconds, then it'll print out function called and make this invisible. And as you can see, function called was printed. So now for using it multiple times, let's say I'm also going to make a make visible function really quick. So we can do local function make visible, and we can pass in another part. It doesn't matter if by the way, you don't want to make variables of the same name like this if they're like different values. Like if you do that, then the second one will automatically override the first one. I don't know if that makes sense, but don't make variables with the same name unless it's in functions. And I know these two are the same name, but since they're created within a function, they can only be used within this function. So that's fine. So again, we can print made visible this time. Then we can set, again, the transparency to 0 this time. and part dot can collide equals true. So now we can wait. Let's wait another 3 seconds after this and make the part visible. So let's test that out. And as you can see, after 5 seconds, the function is called and the part became invisible. But then, as you can see, it said made visible. Now, what's a little odd here is that when we make it invisible, it's actually getting deleted from the workspace. So for now, we're just going to leave this can collide off. We're gonna get rid of this can collide. I'll try to figure out why that's not working. But anyway, we'll just look at the transparency. So as you can see, after 5 seconds, then this part disappears. And after 3 seconds, the part reappears. So that's functions, but then we can also call them again. So if we wait 3 seconds again and make it invisible, then we can call make invisible again with our part. And as you can see, it should do the same. It should make it invisible once more. So as you can see, it's called and it becomes invisible, then it becomes visible, then it should turn invisible again, and there we go. So those are the basics of functions. I hope you guys understand, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope this was very helpful for your scripting learning. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and let me know if you like this series so that I can continue. And I'll see you guys in the next one.